When I was really little, my parents would let me stay up on the weekends to watch TV until I fell asleep. I really loved these times, as I'd stay up later than anybody else, just because I could. Well, one night, I was almost asleep on the couch, when I heard a noise on our front porch. It was the sound of our old-fashioned porch swing moving back and forth. I was a little scared, so I crept towards the bay windows of my living room and peeked out towards the porch. Sitting on the swing was an older woman, probably in her 50s, wearing nothing but a nightgown, covered in blood, and holding a huge kitchen knife. I flipped out immediately and ran screaming into my parents' room, but was too terrified to form my words. My parents saw that I was completely distraught, but when I finally was able to tell them what I saw, my dad got really angry and told me that it was just a dream and to go back to bed. I refused and kept crying and screaming frantically until he'd had enough and snatched my arm and dragged me towards the front door to prove there was nothing there. I kicked and screamed all the way trying to make him stop, but he kept pulling me. Finally, we got to the door. He unlocked it, swung it open, and said, "See, there's nothing that..." To this day, I've never seen the look of fear and shock that was on his face when that woman turned and stared at the both of us, and slowly stood up with the knife. My dad slammed the door shut and got my mum to call the police while he went to go get his gun. He went back to the door with a 12-bore and cracked the door enough just to stick the barrel out. He asked her what she was doing, and she said, "Somebody killed my husband, but it wasn't me." My dad told her that the police were coming, and she freaked out, grabbed the knife and dashed into the night. The police found her 15 minutes later trying to break into one of our neighbours' houses. I've never slept in that room again. Now, I just talked to my mum, and she said we never really found out the whole story, but apparently that woman was crazy and off her medication. Her and her husband got into a fight, and she tried to attack him with that knife, but didn't seriously hurt him. When he got her out the house, she cut herself with a knife, either trying to commit suicide or make it look like her husband did it. The police never really talked to us about it, and that's just what we heard from the woman's neighbours. Back when I was in college, there was an old dormitory that was empty and locked up. The first floor windows were covered up with thick black curtains, and the doors had chains and padlocks on them. On my second year of school, I got my EMT certificate and started working for the campus EMS squad. That was easily my coolest job ever, and there were perks that other students wouldn't get. One of those was keys to everywhere, so obviously we used those keys to go everywhere and anywhere we wanted. Most places were pretty boring. My now best friend, who was the other EMT I worked with, decided to make the old dorm our hangout place. We would sneak in with friends and drink there on weekends or nights. We usually stayed on the first floor, on just one wing of the dorm, the one closest to the back entrance. We didn't stray because the place was dirty and had cobwebs. So one night, we were drinking in the one room we'd set up the tables and chairs that we'd seized. We were all together. Nobody was missing, when somebody very close to our room and very loudly screamed, "Who the fuck is there?" To which one of us drunkenly responded, "Who the fuck do you think?" A very confused voice responded back, "You're not coming with me then, John?" They sounded like they were walking away from us, towards the centre of the building, away from the stairwell. Incidentally, none of us were named John. A few minutes later, we could hear on the floor above us, a very old building, floors like that super thick, a rumbling sound that kind of shook the walls. The rumbling stopped right above us with a giant crash. The shit just got officially creepy. We all ran up the stairs and made our way to the hallway above the one we were hanging out in. Right at where our room would have been on the first floor was a giant filing cabinet on wheels. It was just there. Nobody else was there. You could see the wheel tracks on the floor because it was so dusty. But there were no other footprints besides our own. We all fucking bolted without getting our stuff. No stopping to get our booze, or turning off our radio, or even turning off our powered lantern. So we obviously had to go back and get our shit. We waited a few days. A friend of mine and I went one evening to get it. First, we go to the window and see if we could spot our stuff in the room. My friend looked in. I didn't, on the other hand. He said he thought he saw somebody in the doorway. I thought he was acting retarded because of what happened the other night. We snuck in. We made it to the room to get our shit. Somewhere down and towards the centre of the building, we hear a door shut. It's completely dark down there. We heard a door close and open. We didn't stay around to find out what it was. We got the fuck out of there. So I'm not one of those people who believes in the supernatural and stuff like that. And the same goes for my friends. We decided that we need to figure out what the hell was going on with this building. So about 6 of us devised a pretty easy plan to go about with it. We circle the building one night and check all the doors and windows to make sure they're all locked up. Then we went to our usual entrance. Left 2 people on the inside to make sure nobody came in or out. Then the rest going from dorm to dorm, checking to make sure nobody else was there. We'd yell, "Hello?" and obviously get no response. We make it through a hallway to where we hang out. The tensions had eased a bit by then. One of the people at the outside door moves up to where we stopped. We got up to the 2nd floor. We could see where the filing cabinet was at this point. It was back in its original place, with the wheel tracks and no fucking footprints. Tension in the group began to rise. We start doing the whole hello, hello thing, and no response again. We get about halfway through the hall, and one of us gets the idea of saying, "Oh come on, it's your friend Johnny." A giant thud below us, muffled screams from the 2 we left out as lookouts, probably saying that something along the lines of, "What the fuck was that?" A giant thud behind us on the same floor, where nobody could have been, because we went through those rooms. We would have noticed someone else slamming a door right fucking behind us. It turns into a race to get back to where we came from, past the doors that we just slammed. As we get into the hallway, we can hear the doors opening and closing in a way that something was coming towards us from the centre of the building. We get a few hundred yards away before we stop running and make sure we all made it. We found another place to hang out after that. It's torn down now, and a real dorm was built over it. But I'm just glad we all came out alive. Home alone in bed. My boyfriend had been away helping his parents fix their internet, and he was going to have dinner with them afterwards. I wasn't expecting him home until the next morning, because he had a late start, and his mother has a habit of talking him into staying the night. Now, I'm a light sleeper, and I woke to what sounded like a boat engine. Not really that unusual. There's a lot of boat activity where I am, and my bedroom faces that part of the water, so I can usually hear everything that goes on out there. I checked my phone and it was roughly 1:30. At that point, I did think someone was just a weird arsehole out there at that time of night, but I eventually stopped caring and fell back to sleep. I remember waking up to the sound of footsteps on our ground floor. They're hardwood floors, so I can hear the entire route someone travels from one side of the house to the other. I assume my boyfriend had decided to come home after all, and I listened to him move around the house, waiting for him to come upstairs. I'd almost drifted back to sleep when I heard the footsteps on the stairs. My room is the first room, directly at the top, and I leave the hallway light on most nights. I heard him open our bedroom door, and I didn't turn over. Our bed faces the door, and I was turned on my right side facing away. I hadn't even opened my eyes for a while. I was so groggy, I had no idea what he was doing. Finally, I realised he still hadn't come in, because I could see the light through my eyes, and I finally rolled over to ask him what the hell he was doing. There was a man in my doorway, a man that I immediately realised wasn't my boyfriend. I noticed the hair immediately. He had really long, scraggy hair. He was much shorter too. I couldn't see many details of his face at that point, mostly the silhouette from the hallway lights. I panicked. I immediately thought I was going to die, and I had to get out there. I screamed, started crying, the whole deal. I have a remote light switch, which I'm not sure hurt or helped me really, because I then had to see this disgusting man. He looked dirty, and I mean like actually covered in dirt, on his flannel shirt, puffy vest thing over the top, and his eyes were bulging out his head. That's the one thing I'll never forget. Those bulging fucking eyes. I looked at him and then realised why he'd been standing there for so long. I was naked. I sleep that way as I overheat. I imagine most people do. If you don't, you should. But maybe not after hearing this. I had my pants on, but I was topless. At the time it was warm, and I had no comforter on my bed. Only a sheet. I didn't even have time to think to cover myself when I noticed my potential murderer standing in the doorway. When I turned the light on, he continued to stare at me, licking his lips. Literally. Smacking his lips. It was obvious at that point what his intentions were originally. To rob the place. And what they'd now just become when he saw me naked. I jumped up as fast as I could and backed myself against the farthest wall. I asked him what he wanted. He grunted. That was all I could get out of him. Grunts. I had 2 weapons at my disposal, a 20-pound weight and an electrical guitar. I chose the guitar for its swinging power and held it up like a baseball bat. I'm sure I looked really awesome at this point. I begged him just to leave, to take what he wanted and to just leave. He didn't move for a long time. It felt like forever. He just stared at me as I cried and begged. Finally, he let out the most disturbing thing I'll probably ever hear. "Put down the guitar, sweetheart." I just about lost it. Honestly, I thought I was going to faint, vomit, or even die. Just something. I knew deep down I couldn't move, even if I wanted to. What happens next is the most unbelievable part of the story, but it's honestly the only way I was able to eventually make the light of the situation. Right after he told me to put down the guitar, he farted. I shit you not, a long, loud, and otherwise impressive fart. I remember he kind of looked uncomfortable at what he'd just done, but he then decided to take a step forward. All my adrenaline rushed at once, and I saw him coming at me. All I could think to do was to run. He realised I was going to bolt and lunged to me, and as he did, I leapt up onto my bed and dashed over the other side and right out my bedroom door. It was almost too fucking easy. I don't remember how I got down the stairs, but I got down them quickly enough. It was all a blur after that. The front door had a dead bolt, but the door to our garage doesn't, and I realised that's how he got in. I'm sure I didn't leave it unlocked, but I do occasionally do things that stupid girls do. Garage door was still open a crack, and that's where I made my exit. I could hear him fumbling down the stairs, but I didn't think he'd chase me through the rest of the house after that. I got out the garage door and had to run across a bunch of gravel and cut through to my nearest neighbours. Not only did I nearly get raped by an intruder, but I also had the wonderful experience of banging on my 75-year-old neighbour's door, half naked. I got in and immediately called the police, and while we were waiting for them, I heard a boat engine start up and leave. That's right, a man came and escaped by boat to rob our house. I don't think he expected me to be there, as there was no cars in the driveway and no lights on, and a lot of people know that several houses in our area are sort of vacation homes. The police came and didn't really do much. I gave them my statement, but left out the fart bit, which I honestly now regret, but I wasn't in the amusing mood at the time. They scanned every room in the house, but obviously he was long gone, disappearing into the bay. Having a chuckle, probably. They never found him. He didn't actually get much from our house. He took the cash I left on the counter, the toolbox from our garage, and oddly, I think he stole my passport. I never found my passport after that day, and it had been left on the counter as well with the money. Kind of weird to think about it. Truth be told, this whole thing did really screw me up for quite some time. Needless to say, all of our doors have deadbolts now, and my boyfriend has to come home every single night. I was ultra paranoid about every noise, every boat, every night alone for the entire year after that. Now I realise, hell, I got out of it. I'm okay. We've got the deadbolts now, I'll be fine. In the end, some of what happened to me was funny, and I do laugh when I look back at it most of the time. Sometimes I cry. It just depends on the situation, really. I wasn't raised to be afraid of anything, which is quite unnatural. And I realised this all sounds ridiculous, and it absolutely was. I just hope no one else has to go through something like this.